I never thought a walk home at night would change the way I see the world, or myself. It happened last fall when I was a college student in a small mountain town up north. Usually, I'd take the bus back to campus after my shift at a cafe about 3 miles from the dorms. But that night, I got off late and the last bus had already left at 9 p.m. I stood outside the cafe with my phone battery at 2% and a light drizzle starting to fall. I decided to walk. There were two routes: the main road, which was well lit and winding, almost an hour and a half walk, or the shortcut through the woods, which could cut the trip down to around 40 minutes. I'd taken that shortcut a few times during the day. It felt quiet, even peaceful. I figured, what's the worst that could happen? Just turn on my flashlight and keep moving. But nighttime turns the woods into something else entirely. As I stepped past the old wooden gate at the entrance, the trees swallowed most of the moonlight. A cold wind rustled the branches overhead, cracking like slow footsteps above me. I turned on my phone flashlight and pushed forward. About 10 minutes in, I started hearing footsteps behind me. Not echoes of my own. This was a second rhythm, softer and hesitant. I turned around. Nothing. Probably just a squirrel, I muttered, but my pace quickened. Then I heard it, a soft giggle, faint, breathy, like someone trying not to laugh out loud. It came from the right, beyond the trees where my flashlight couldn't reach. I froze. My heart thumped in my chest. The darkness was thick, and my beam barely reached past a few feet. I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" No answer. I started walking faster, almost jogging. The giggle returned, closer now, clearer. I was sure of it. Someone was following me, and it wasn't an animal. It was a person. Panicked, I veered off the main trail into a narrow path I hadn't taken before. I hoped to throw off whoever or whatever was behind me. That's when I saw it. A figure, tall, motionless, standing right in the middle of the path ahead, facing away from me. I froze. My breathing stopped. The figure began to turn its head, slowly, unnaturally. But instead of a face, I saw only a dark void. Like the head was a hole, swallowing light itself. I screamed and ran. My foot caught on a root, and I hit the ground hard, scraping my knee, but I scrambled up and kept running. I didn't know how far I went, only that the forest felt like it was closing in around me. Eventually, I saw the distant glow of the main road. I burst out of the woods, gasping for breath, covered in dirt, knees trembling. I never used that path again, but that wasn't the end of it. When I got back to my dorm, my roommate stared at me and asked, "Where did you go? Why are you back so early?" I said, "What do you mean early? It's got to be close to midnight." She pointed at the wall clock. 9:12 p.m. I was sure I had left the cafe after 9:10 and had walked for at least half an hour. How had only 2 minutes passed? I checked my phone, still at 2%. No unusual calls or messages. But the step counter app showed only 47 steps taken. Something happened in those woods that night. Something time didn't want to record. Later that week, I mentioned the path to a local elderly man who owned a bookstore near campus. His face went pale. "That shortcut," he said. "Back in '73, a student vanished walking that trail at night. Same story. Late shift, shortcut through the woods. They never found him." He leaned closer. "They say something lives in there. A thing that doesn't speak, doesn't breathe. It just waits. They call it the keeper of shadows. If you see it, don't look at its face. Don't run. Don't scream, or you'll stay there, trapped between time." I don't know how I escaped. Maybe because I screamed. Maybe because I didn't stare long enough. Maybe it let me go. But I do know one thing. If you ever come across a quiet forest path at night, lit only by moonlight, remember, not every road leads you home. I grew up in a small town in New Jersey, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and nothing truly scary ever happens. At least that's what we told ourselves. I was in high school when this happened, sometime around 2011. I used to walk home after evening tutoring, and the fastest way back was always Ashberry Street, a quiet stretch lined with old oak trees and Victorian houses, whispering in the wind. No one ever said anything bad about Ashberry Street. It was just old. But the first time I heard about the woman on Ashberry was from my grandmother when I was maybe 8. She told me, "If you ever see someone standing still beneath the oak tree at dusk, don't say hello. Just walk by, and don't look back." I thought it was just one of those spooky tales to keep kids from wandering after dark, until one November evening. It was raining hard that night, and I had stayed later than usual. I didn't have an umbrella, and my phone was dying. I figured Ashberry was the quickest way to get home. I didn't want to be out there any longer than I had to. The rain made everything unusually quiet. No cars, no lights in the windows, just the soft slap of my wet sneakers on the pavement and the occasional creak of a branch swaying in the wind. Then I saw her. She was standing beneath one of the largest oaks, not far from the old church intersection. Her dress was long, gray, and out of place, like it belonged in the 1800s. Her black hair was soaking wet and hung like curtains, almost covering her face. She didn't move, didn't raise her head, just stood there motionless. My heart started pounding. I remembered what my grandmother had said. I lowered my eyes and walked faster, not daring to speak or even breathe too loud. But just as I passed her, I heard it, a whisper, soft and breathy, right beside my ear. "You're not the one." I froze in place, and against every instinct screaming not to, I turned around. She was gone. No sound, no footsteps, no one walking away, just the wet sidewalk and the heavy rain. I ran all the way home. My clothes were soaked, my heart racing. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. The next day, I told my parents. My dad went quiet. My mom looked worried. That night, I overheard them arguing in the kitchen when they thought I was asleep. My mom said, "She saw it, just like your sister did." Your sister? I'd never known my dad had a sister. Later, I snooped through an old drawer and found a photo album I'd never seen before. Inside was a picture of a teenage girl, maybe 17, with long black hair and sad eyes. On the back of the photo, someone had written, "Caroline, 1982. I asked my dad. After some hesitation, he finally admitted it. His younger sister Caroline went missing one rainy night in 1982 while walking home. She was last seen on Ashberry Street. The police never found her. But over the years, people began whispering about a woman who appeared beneath the oak trees on rainy nights. My grandmother believed it was Caroline, that her spirit never left, and the whisper meant something. If she said, "You're not the one," you were safe. But if she didn't say anything, you might not make it home. A week later, I returned to Ashberry Street, this time during the day. I just needed to see it in the light. The same tree was there, massive, still, watching. And then I saw something carved deep into the bark near the roots. "Caroline, 1982, I'm still here. I've never walked that street again. Even now, when it rains at night and I find myself walking alone, I glance over my shoulder, just to make sure I am still alone." I used to live in a quiet suburban neighborhood just outside of Milwaukee. During my final year of college, I moved back in with my mom after my dad passed away. Our house sat at the end of Maplewood Street, a quiet road lined with tall trees, where the yellow glow of old streetlights gave the nights a sleepy, dreamlike quality. Back then, I worked evening shifts at a small independent bookstore downtown. It was only a 15-minute walk from the store to our house, a route I knew by heart, past an abandoned elementary school, across a sleepy residential block, and finally down Maplewood. One chilly October night, I left the store around 11 p.m. The air was colder than usual, and a thick mist had begun to roll in. I zipped up my jacket and started walking. Everything felt normal until I reached the old dental clinic. It had been closed for years, its front covered by massive glass panels, the kind that reflect everything clearly, especially at night. As I passed it, I saw my reflection, but something was wrong. The reflection wasn't synced with me. It lagged behind slightly. I lifted my hand. The reflection raised its hand half a second later. I stopped walking. It kept moving for a step, then paused. Then it smiled. I wasn't smiling. I stepped back, heart racing. "You're just tired," I whispered to myself. I hurried home, constantly glancing over my shoulder. I checked all the windows and locked every door. That night, I avoided mirrors. I didn't want to see anything that might smile back. When I finally drifted off, I dreamed of standing in front of a mirror. But the thing inside wasn't me. It looked like me, but its eyes were hollow, empty, cold. It didn't mirror me anymore. It waved. I didn't wave back. The next morning, I told my mom. She laughed it off. "You're overworked, that's all," she said, brushing my concerns aside. I tried to believe her until the following night. I had just finished brushing my teeth when I heard it. 3 knocks, soft, deliberate, from the mirror. I stared at it, frozen. Nothing. But as I turned to leave, I caught it, just for a split second, in the corner of my eye. The reflection wasn't moving. I snapped back around. Gone. Just me again. Or so it seemed. I bolted out of the bathroom and didn't go back in until morning. I started avoiding the street with the clinic altogether, choosing a longer route home. It took 20 extra minutes, but it was worth the peace of mind. One night, though, I forgot. Habit took over, and I turned down the familiar path. And when I reached the glass, it was waiting. Inside the reflection, under the dim yellow lights, stood a figure. Not my reflection. It was already there, before I arrived. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. It moved, not in sync. It stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. Its hand rose and pressed against the inside of the glass. Its mouth began to move, though I couldn't hear a sound. But I knew what it was saying. Trade places. Ah, I screamed and ran. I didn't stop until I was home, bolting the door behind me. I told a friend of mine who was studying psychology. She suggested it could be a hallucination from stress and lack of sleep. But I knew better. I returned to the building the next day in daylight to prove to myself it was just my mind playing tricks. But the glass was shattered. Police tape lined the front. Someone had smashed the mirror-like panels to pieces. I asked a nearby resident what happened. She shrugged. Probably kids messing around. But it's weird. A lot of people said those windows never reflected right, like something was always off. I thought it was over. Until I moved my bedroom downstairs and brought in an old mirror from my grandfather's storage. That night, I hung it on the wall. At 3 a.m., I woke up suddenly. The room was cold, silent. I looked toward the mirror, and in the reflection, I was still sleeping. But I was awake. And the reflection? It was smiling.